Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Daily Record's Criminal Record, our weekly crime podcast. I'm Molly Finlay, and I'm joined by our resident crime reporter, Norman Silvester. Thanks for joining us, Norman.
Thank you.
The Daily Record are reporting this morning that foot soldiers of Ross McGill have firebombed a transit van outside homes belonging to associates of Mark Richardson in Edinburgh. What's the latest on this, Norman?
This is the latest escalation of a long-running feud between the Glasgow-based Lyons and Daniel family. Dates back more than 20 years, but there's been a very recent escalation of that feud from March of this year right up until this week, where we've seen a series of firebombings of associates and members of the Daniel crime family, allegedly orchestrated by an individual called Ross McGill, who is based in Dubai and under the auspices of a group called Tamil Junto, who've been posting online footage of the various firebombings and attacks that have taken place at properties in both Glasgow and Edinburgh since March. The latest incident was on the early hours of Monday morning, where a Land Rover was set fire in Campaign Road in Niddrie. And then there was the other incident a few minutes earlier involving the transit van, also in the Niddrie area. Both the firebombings or fire attacks were outside the homes of associates of Mark Richardson. Mark Richardson's a convicted criminal member of an organised crime group with strong links to the Daniel family. And this attack on Richardson is also seen as an attack on the Daniel family. The allegation is that Richardson or associates of Richardson have reneged on a drugs deal, £500,000 cocaine deal, and paid for part of that or some of that with false currency. So this looks as though it's a revenge attack, and it's been linked into the wider feud between the Glasgow-based Lyons and Daniel families.
And we know that this has been developing across Scotland, but let's also revisit the double murder that happened in Spain last week of Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. Can you bring us up to date on the recent developments in this incident?
We're now in the second week of the investigation by the Spanish police to the murder of Eddie Lyons Jr. And Ross Monaghan. Both were senior members of the Lyons organised crime group based in Glasgow. The incident happened on May 31st. It was a Saturday night in a bar owned by Ross Monaghan called Monaghan's. A mystery gunman got out of a car and shot Eddie Lyons Jr., who was standing at the entrance to the bar, and then went into the bar and shot dead Ross Monaghan, firing for 4 shots, chasing him into the bar, and he died from his wounds and injuries. As we go into the second week of the police investigation, there appears to be more questions than answers. It's not just a who done it, but why done it, who was responsible and what was the motive. It's clearly a development in the Lyons and Daniel feud. Police Scotland have been pains to point out it's not directly linked to the recent escalation of violence or escalation of the feud in March this year, which we saw the most recent incident in Edinburgh at the weekend with the firebombings of the 2 cars. But there's also been a suggestion that Ross Monaghan was the principal target of the shooting, and that Eddie Lyons Jr., who was also shot dead, may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the target was Ross Monaghan, and he may have upset another crime faction. He may owe them money. There's some suggestion it could be a drugs gang based in the south of Spain with links to a gang in the south of England. It may be over a drugs debt, but really it's yet another kind of twist in this whole feud that dates back more than 20 years. We know Ross Monaghan was a senior member of the Lyons crime gang. He was essentially operating on the same level as Lyons family members. Police have not released that much information. We don't even have a description of the gunman, some suggestion that he may be blonde-haired. We know that he escaped in a getaway car. There's been no information about whether that car has been recovered. The police in Spain have been pretty tight-lipped about the whole thing. I don't think we've even had official confirmation of the names of the two victims. Police Scotland have been at pains to point out in the past couple of days that they don't believe that the double shooting, double murder is directly linked to this ongoing firebombing escalation since March, which has added a bit of further confusion almost, though they have said that they will provide whatever assistance they can to the Spanish police. The Spanish police in turn have not really released that much information and were as much in the dark, if not more in the dark than we were on May 31st when the murders took place.
And just on Eddie Lyons Jr. potentially having been caught in a crossfire, we know that he was on a golf holiday with friends. What do you think this says about the kind of people that we're talking about? Are these just normal people that you wouldn't recognise on the street?
One of the twists in this tale was the revelations in the Daily Record last week that Eddie Lyons Jr., who was shot first, who was the first of the two victims, had actually been in Fungarola with some friends, about a dozen friends, all members of Dullator Golf Club, which is based just on the outskirts of Cumbernauld. It's a very, we might call it posh golf club, well respected, quite expensive, almost exclusive. But we understand Eddie Lyons Jr. has been a member for some years. They'd pre-arranged or organised a kind of boys golfing holiday. They played at a number of local courses, having a good time, bunch of guys out enjoying themselves. No suggestion that the other golfers are in any way involved in organised crime, just pals of Eddie, fellow mates out for a golfing holiday weekend. But what we do understand is that towards the end of this golfing holiday, they decided to go out for a few drinks on the Saturday night and watch the Champions League final between PSG and Inter Milan on television. Eddie suggested to go to his pal's bar, his pal being Ross Monaghan, and the bar being Monaghan's bar, where the murder ultimately took place. What this tells us is that people that are involved in organised crime, not necessarily guys going about with horns on their head, many cases they're ordinary everyday people with normal families. In Eddie Lyons Jr. case, somebody who likes to play golf, go on golfing holidays with his pals, quite a normal, ordinary thing. These are guys that you might meet when dropping the kids off at school, or you might meet, the local parents-teachers meeting, or you might bump into the local shopping centre and chat about the normal, everyday things. They could be your next-door neighbour. And it shows that in many ways that though this is quite clearly a murder linked to organised crime, in many ways the victims are in other ways are as normal and ordinary as you and I.
There's been some political fallout related to this. John Swinney said that he's open to taking tougher action to tackle crime, and he's even gone as far as calling a youth violence summit related to the deaths of two young boys, Teklay and Kayden Moy, who were the victims of knife crime. What do you think Swinney's reasoning is for calling this summit and acknowledging potential crime violence in Scotland?
Well, the matter was first raised in Parliament on Thursday, 4 days after the murder of Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. The leader of the Conservative Party, or Scottish Conservatives rather, Russell Finlay, raised the matter in Parliament, suggested that one of the reasons for the escalation in violence we've seen, and violence generally over the years, has been a drop in the number of police officers. And there has been a drop in the number of police officers since 2013, though these numbers are rising with fresh recruitment. And the suggestion was that, that the government was to blame in part because it wasn't investing enough in kind of grassroots policing, targeting these criminals at a kind of grassroots level. John Swinney responded by saying that the Scottish Government was committed to tackling organised crime of the type that we'd seen at the weekend with the double murder of Lyons and Monaghan. Subsequently to that, there was an announcement on the Saturday, the week after the double murder, of an anti-youth violence initiative. where people, interested parties will get together and target the concerns over the rise in what appears to be certainly a rise or proliferation of knife crime. We saw two brutal tragic deaths of two teenagers, a 15-year-old in Glasgow in March, then a murder of a 16-year-old, or the death of a 16-year-old on Irvine Beach last month. And this appears to be prompted this youth violence summit, almost like an anti-knife crime summit. But the suggestion is that people I've spoken to, that this type of anti-youth violence initiative could also look at, how youths get involved in crime, how they get involved in organised crime. How do the people that end up as gangsters, drug dealers, where do they start off? Quite often they'll start off at a low level, get involved in minor incidents that escalate, often, as we've seen in the last couple of months, into tragic stabbings, but also the feeling that an anti-youth crime initiative might also address a lot of the issues of organised crime and how young people get lured into organised crime.
And staying on the topic of organised crime, Spain seem to be saying that they're having similar problems, and there's been a picture emerging of what's going on in the Costa del Sol. What are the Spanish government and local mayors saying about all of this?
This is the double murder, in Monaghan's bar in Figueroa. It's been a major story in Spain. It's been a major talking point, and it's created a lot of controversy and a lot of political reaction. We've seen some of the right-wing parties and groups saying that something needs to be done. We've got too many foreign criminals. They need to be deported forthwith. If anybody is identified as being involved in organised crime, even if they're running bars or restaurants or whatever, they should be deported immediately. We know that there's something like 115 organised crime groups in the south of Spain, involving about 59 different nationalities. You've got British, you've got Irish, you've got Moroccan, you've got Russian, you've got people from Albania and a whole range of other countries. You've also got a situation that's emerged of violence, endemic violence related to that organised crime growth. So you've had something like 8 shootings in the past 2 months in the wider kind of Malaga region. The local mayor, she said that they don't have the resources to deal with this type of crime. At the moment, the murder investigation has been carried out by the national police and sort of specialist crime units. She's really saying that, we're a local tourist police and we're dealing with minor incidents. We can't deal with these kind of proxy wars that develop. What we are seeing is that, and it's a bit of a tradition, but there's been a growth in recent years of organised crime groups basing themselves down in the sort of Costa del Sol resorts, laundering their money through bars and restaurants. But what we've seen is an escalation beyond that, where you get kind of proxy wars breaking out, where the different groups are all maybe competing against each other, and all sorts of feuds developing. So it's a concern, this rise in organised crime, and it's something that the politicians are beginning to address. We've already seen demonstrations in Spain the last couple of years against over-tourism, and this might be the next thing that the politicians target.
And the Spanish police are yet to name the 2 men who have been shot. Is that correct?
The investigation by the Spanish police has been carried out what we might call a veil of secrecy. That is the way the investigations go. It's not similar or not in the same way as police investigate crime in the UK or in Scotland, where you would expect to know the victim's name and a bit about the victims and maybe even an appeal for witnesses. As far as I'm aware, the police haven't really put any appeals for witnesses. They haven't put any descriptions out for the suspects. We're not aware if they've recovered the getaway car, which would be key to any criminal investigation. We don't know what route the investigation is going down. We know one senior officer has said that they will catch the person. They believe they will catch the person responsible. As far as I'm aware, the police did know the 2 individuals that they knew of Lyons and were aware of Ross Monaghan. They didn't have any ID on them at the time, but I understand local officers were able to identify who they were, which kind of suggests they'd maybe come under the surveillance or to the attention of the local police. But effectively, there's been nothing official. We haven't had any official confirmation of the names. So at this moment, we don't know how close they are to arresting the man or men responsible, if in fact they're close to that at all.
And what do you think we might see in the next week related to this incident? Are we hoping for some answers?
This is an investigation that desperately needs some answers. We definitely need to know more about who was responsible, the background to this particular murder. For example, we know that there was people in the bar that night, ordinary members of the public, in neighbouring bars. This is somebody who could easily have been caught up in, innocent members of the public caught in the crossfire. But I think there's a desperate need for answers, because at the moment we've got a lot of speculation, a lot of confusion. And I think people, genuinely, people that go to holidaying from Garola, we've spoken the record to a number of local people that are holidaying there or expats. This is something that has an influence beyond an incident in the Costa del Sol. We need to know more. I think people are entitled to know more and to have answers, and hopefully the Spanish police will provide that.
Thank you very much, Norman, for joining us, and thanks to our audience for tuning in to Criminal Record. If you have a question for the team, you can email reporters@dailyrecord.co.uk with the subject line Criminal Record. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, you can subscribe to listen to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts by searching for Criminal Record, or you can watch it each week on our YouTube channel. Thank you.